Have you ever wondered if addiction isn't just a bad habit, but a deep, hidden longing within your very soul? What if understanding that could shatter its grip forever? Today, we're diving into something truly profound. Something that might just change everything you thought you knew about addiction. We're going to explore the radical, deeply human insights of Carl Jung, one of history's most brilliant minds. He didn't see addiction as a moral failing or just a physical craving, but as a misguided quest for something sacred. If you or someone you care about has ever felt trapped by a pattern you just can't shake, this isn't just another philosophy lesson. This is a roadmap to understanding the true source of that relentless pull, and more importantly, how to finally break free and reclaim your life. When we talk about addiction, what's the first thing that usually comes to mind? For most people, it's pretty simple, right? It's about willpower. It's about bad choices. Maybe it's even about a moral failing or just a physical dependence. And sure, those elements can absolutely be part of the picture. But what if that perspective, as common as it is actually missing the entire point? What if it's like trying to understand a complex novel by only reading the last chapter? Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, had a radically different idea. He saw addiction not primarily as a weakness, but as a spiritual problem. Not spiritual in a strictly religious sense, though it can certainly touch upon that, but spiritual in the sense of our deep human need for meaning, connection, and wholeness. He proposed that behind every addictive craving, there's a frustrated, misdirected, or unfulfilled human longing. A search for something profound that we've just lost the map to. Think about it this way. Imagine you're terribly thirsty, parched, in the desert. You might drink anything you can get your hands on, even if it's muddy, contaminated water, because your body screams for relief. Jung suggested that addiction works in a similar but psychological way. Our souls are thirsty. They're aching for something real, something meaningful, something that connects us to our deeper selves and the world around us. But because we don't know what that is, or how to find it in healthy ways, we grab at whatever promises immediate, albeit temporary, relief. That immediate relief could be anything: alcohol, drugs, gambling, endless scrolling on social media, obsessive work, even toxic relationships. It's a substitute, a cheap imitation for the real thing our psyche craves. He famously said, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering." And addiction, for Jung, was a form of neurosis. It's a way we try to avoid the pain of confronting our actual psychological needs, the difficult truths about ourselves, or the existential void we might feel. Instead of doing the hard work of finding authentic meaning, we opt for the quick fix that temporarily numbs the ache. But that numbness comes at a steep price, doesn't it? It keeps us from ever truly addressing the original thirst. So, to really understand addiction, Jung would say we need to look beyond the substance or the behavior itself, and instead, look into the heart of the person experiencing it. What is their soul truly yearning for? What's the legitimate suffering they're trying to sidestep? That's where the real journey begins. So if addiction isn't just a bad choice, what is it? Jung introduced us to this incredible concept called the shadow. Now, don't let the spooky name throw you off. The shadow isn't necessarily evil. It's simply the part of ourselves that we've decided isn't acceptable, the parts we've pushed away, denied, or hidden, often unconsciously. It's everything from our perceived flaws and weaknesses to our unexpressed talents, wild impulses, and even our deepest fears. Anything we label as not me gets shoved into this psychic basement. But here's the kicker. Just because you push something into the basement doesn't mean it disappears. It just means it starts banging on the pipes from below, trying to get your attention. Jung believed that the more we repress our shadow, the more power it gains over us, often manifesting in destructive ways. And guess what one of the most common manifestations is? Addiction. Think of it like this. You might grow up in a family where anger is never allowed. So you repress your anger. You become the nice one. But that anger doesn't just vanish, it goes into your shadow. Years later, you find yourself struggling with a drinking problem. You drink to numb the irritation, the frustration, the simmering rage you refuse to acknowledge. Or maybe you're always trying to be perfect, always performing, never allowing yourself to be vulnerable. That desire for perfection and fear of failure gets pushed down. Then, you might develop an addiction to work, or even something seemingly harmless like binge watching. because it offers an escape from the immense pressure of maintaining that perfect facade. The addiction in this case is the shadow screaming for attention. It's saying, hey, you've ignored this part of yourself for too long and now it's running the show. The addiction itself can even become a perverse expression of the shadow. Maybe you feel powerless in your life, so you unconsciously crave the rebellious freedom that comes with breaking rules, even your own. The substance or behavior becomes a way to act out those unacknowledged impulses, the rebel, the pleasure seeker, the one who doesn't have to conform. It's a distorted attempt to find a sense of power or liberation that you're denying yourself in your conscious life. Jung suggested that the path to true healing isn't about fighting the addiction directly with brute force. It's about turning around and facing the shadow. It's about asking, what unacknowledged part of me is trying to express itself through this addiction? What am I trying to avoid seeing about myself? When you start to shine a light into that psychic basement, when you acknowledge those repressed parts, something remarkable happens. The shadow loses its power to control you from the dark. You begin to integrate those pieces, to understand them, and ultimately, to make conscious choices about how you express them, rather than letting them express themselves through a compulsion you can't control. It's about making the unconscious conscious. So, we've talked about the shadow, those hidden parts of ourselves. But there's an even deeper layer to Jung's understanding of addiction. The idea that it's often a profoundly misguided search for what he called the soul, or the self. Not the ego, not your everyday personality, but that deeper, central, unifying core of who you truly are, your authentic essence, your spiritual center. Jung believed that human beings have an innate drive towards what he called individuation, a process of becoming whole, of integrating all the disparate parts of our personality into a cohesive, authentic self. It's a journey of self-discovery, of realizing our full potential. But this journey can be difficult, painful even, because it requires confronting uncomfortable truths and letting go of old ways of being. And when we shy away from this challenging path, when we feel disconnected from our true selves, that's when the soul gets hungry. Imagine you're lost in a vast, empty landscape, yearning for connection, for meaning, for a sense of belonging. You see a flickering light in the distance and you run towards it, desperate for warmth and guidance. But that light turns out to be a mirage or a dangerous fire. Addiction, in Jungian terms, is often that frantic, misdirected dash towards a flickering light. It's a desperate attempt to fill a spiritual void, to connect with something larger than ourselves, to feel whole. Even if just for a fleeting moment, people often describe their addictive experiences as feeling complete or at peace or connected when they're using or engaging in their addictive behavior. They might feel a sense of transcendence or belonging or even a profound quiet. These aren't just random sensations. Jung would argue these feelings are echoes of legitimate spiritual needs. The substance or behavior offers a distorted, temporary imitation of what the soul truly craves, a connection to the self, a sense of meaning, a feeling of wholeness, or a deeper union with something beyond the mundane. For example, someone might feel deeply disconnected from others, experiencing profound loneliness. They might turn to alcohol, and for a short while, in the haze of intoxication, they feel a false sense of camaraderie, a loosening of inhibitions that allows them to connect with people in a way they can't manage sober. The alcohol isn't the problem. It's the attempt to bridge the gap of loneliness, to find connection, or consider someone who feels their life lacks purpose, that they're just going through the motions. They might become addicted to extreme sports, chasing that adrenaline rush, that intense feeling of being alive, of pushing boundaries. That rush is a stand-in for the genuine meaning and excitement their soul craves but hasn't found. So, when we look at addiction through this lens, we realize it's not simply about avoiding pain. It's also about a deeply human, if misguided, search for something profoundly good. It's the soul crying out for nourishment. The challenge, then, isn't to simply stop the addiction, but to understand what it's trying to provide, what authentic spiritual need it's attempting to satisfy, and then to find healthy, genuine ways to meet those needs. This is about reorienting our search, not giving up on the longing itself. It's about finding the true map to the treasure our soul desires. Jung gave us another powerful tool for understanding ourselves, the concept of archetypes. Think of archetypes as universal patterns of human experience and behavior, like innate psychological blueprints or instincts. We all carry these patterns within our collective unconscious, figures like the hero, the sage, the lover, the rebel, the shadow, which we've already discussed. These archetypes shape our stories, our myths, and crucially, our personal lives. Now, here's where it gets interesting with addiction. These powerful archetypal energies, which are meant to guide us toward growth and fulfillment, can become distorted or trapped. Instead of empowering us, they can get chained to the addictive pattern. Consider the hero archetype. The hero is about courage, facing challenges, overcoming obstacles, embarking on a quest for something greater. It's about personal growth and contribution. But what if this heroic energy gets twisted? Someone might try to be the hero by constantly rescuing others, becoming codependent, and neglecting their own needs. Or they might feel completely incapable of being a hero in their own life, feeling weak and inadequate. In this repressed state, the heroic impulse might manifest in addiction. The temporary high or escape becomes their battle, their quest, even if it's a self-destructive one. They might chase the feeling of conquering the substance, only to fall again, creating an endless, tragic loop of a hero's journey without true victory. The addiction becomes their dragon, but a dragon they perversely keep alive because it gives their life a perverse structure and challenge. Or think about the lover archetype. This isn't just about romantic love, but about connection, passion, beauty, and intimacy with life itself. When this archetype is denied or wounded, perhaps through relational trauma or a deep sense of unworthiness, the longing for connection doesn't disappear. It might get funneled into an addiction to sex or pornography, or even an excessive need for external validation, seeking that sense of intimacy and connection in a superficial, fleeting way. The individual is trying to experience love and connection, but through a channel that ultimately leaves them more isolated and emptier than before. The archetype is active, but it's operating in chains, misdirected by the unmet longing. Even the rebel archetype, which seeks freedom from oppressive structures and conventions, can get caught. If someone feels stifled, controlled, or unable to express their authentic self, their inner rebel might lash out through addiction. The addiction becomes their defiant act, their way of saying no to perceived authority or societal expectations, even if that authority is their own well-being. The fleeting sense of liberation they get from indulging in the addiction is a poor substitute for true, integrated freedom. The key here is understanding that these archetypes aren't evil, they're powerful forces within us. Addiction often arises when these vital energies are blocked, suppressed, or distorted. The path to recovery, from a Jungian perspective, involves recognizing which archetypes are being expressed in an unhealthy way through the addiction. It's about asking, which part of my deeper self is trying to emerge or express itself through this compulsive pattern? How can I unchain this powerful energy and channel it into a constructive, life-affirming path, rather than letting it drag me down? This involves a conscious effort to acknowledge, understand, and integrate these archetypal energies, allowing them to guide us toward our true potential rather than being expressed in self-defeating ways. It's about taking back the reins of our own inner narrative. If Jung saw addiction as a spiritual problem, a misguided search for wholeness and meaning, then it stands to reason that the path to true healing must involve finding genuine meaning. This isn't just a nice idea. For Jung, it was absolutely central. He famously said, "Meaning makes a great many things endurable. Perhaps everything." And for those caught in the grip of addiction, a life devoid of personal meaning can feel utterly unendurable, pushing them further into the arms of whatever offers a temporary escape. Think about someone who has lost their job, their family, their sense of identity. They feel adrift, their life feels empty. For them, the substance or behavior isn't just a physical craving, it's a way to fill that gaping void, to feel something when everything else feels meaningless. The addiction, paradoxically, can give their life a perverse structure, a routine, even a perverse purpose of its own. When they're high or engaged in their behavior, they might feel powerful or connected or simply like they have a reason to exist, even if it's a destructive one. So, how do you break that cycle? According to Jung, you don't just take away the substance, You have to replace the void with something authentic, something that speaks to the deepest parts of their soul. You have to help them find a new reason to live, a compelling purpose that can compete with and ultimately overcome the pull of the addiction. This isn't about being lectured on morals. It's about discovering what makes their heart sing, what gives their existence weight and significance. This cure of meaning isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. For some, it might be finding a passion, a creative outlet like art, music, or writing. For others, it could be dedicating themselves to a cause, helping others, or engaging in community work. It might be rediscovering a spiritual path, connecting with nature, or building deeply authentic relationships. The key is that the meaning has to be personally resonant. It can't be something imposed from the outside. It has to be discovered from within. Imagine a man who used to be a skilled carpenter but fell into addiction and lost his trade. For years, his life revolved around seeking his next fix. The idea of meaning seemed utterly alien. But then he started volunteering at a local shelter, helping to build furniture for families in need. Slowly, painstakingly, he rediscovered the joy of working with his hands, of seeing tangible results, of contributing to something good. That act of creation, that sense of being useful, of connecting with others, began to fill the void that addiction once occupied. The wood shavings and the smell of sawdust became more compelling than the craving. This isn't to say it's easy. Finding meaning is often a long, arduous process, especially when the mind is clouded by years of addiction. It requires courage, self-reflection, and often the help of others. But Jung believed it was the only true antidote. When a person finds genuine meaning, when their life is infused with purpose, the addiction loses its power because the underlying spiritual hunger, the soul's thirst, is finally being authentically quenched. The false god of addiction can no longer compete with the real, vital purpose that makes life worth living. It's about giving the soul something better to pursue. Jung wasn't just about big philosophical ideas. He also gave us practical tools for self-exploration. And arguably, none was more central than working with the unconscious mind, primarily through dreams and active imagination. For someone grappling with addiction, these tools aren't just fascinating intellectual exercises. They can be profound pathways to healing. Why dreams? Jung believed that our dreams are direct messages from the unconscious, offering insights, warnings, and guidance that our conscious mind often misses or ignores. They speak in the language of symbols and metaphors, bypassing our rational defenses. For someone in addiction, the conscious mind is often preoccupied with cravings, justifications, and avoidance. But the unconscious knows what's really going on beneath the surface. It knows the root causes, the hidden fears, the unmet needs that are fueling the compulsive behavior. Imagine someone who repeatedly dreams of being chased by a monstrous, shadowy figure. Consciously, they might dismiss it as a stress dream, but through a Jungian lens, that figure could represent a repressed trauma, an unacknowledged part of their shadow, or a deeply uncomfortable truth they've been running from. The addiction might be the way they're trying to outrun that figure in their waking life. By exploring the dream, by engaging with the symbol, they can begin to understand what they're truly fleeing from, and perhaps find the courage to turn and face it. Dreams can also offer solutions. They might present symbols of healing, of new beginnings, or even show the addict a path to recovery they hadn't considered. Someone might dream of finding a hidden spring in a parched desert, a clear symbol of vital nourishment, or a source of inner strength they need to tap into. These aren't predictive dreams, they're symbolic guides, nudging us towards what our psyche needs to balance itself. Then, there's active imagination. This is a technique where you consciously engage with unconscious material, like a dream image, a strong emotion, or an inner figure. Instead of just observing, you interact with it, allowing a dialogue to unfold. For someone struggling with addiction, this could involve sitting with the craving itself. Instead of trying to suppress it, they might visualize the craving as a character, an internal monster or a whispering voice. Then they actively engage with it. What do you want? They might ask. Why are you here? The answers that emerge, surprising as they might be, can reveal incredible insights. The monster might not be trying to harm them, but simply crying out for attention or trying to warn them of something. The whispering voice might articulate a deep fear of failure or a longing for comfort. Through this dialogue, the individual begins to understand the deeper psychological dynamics at play, moving from being a passive victim of their urges to an active participant in their inner world. Both dreams and active imagination are powerful tools because they bypass the ego's defenses and connect us directly to the wisdom of the unconscious. They allow us to hear the whisper of our own soul, to understand the deeper narratives playing out within us, and ultimately, to find the hidden meanings and pathways to authentic healing that addiction has obscured. It's about learning to listen to the messages your deeper self is sending you, messages that hold the keys to your liberation. We've touched on it before, but let's really lean into this crucial Jungian concept, individuation. This isn't just about becoming an individual in the sense of being unique, it's about becoming whole. It's the lifelong psychological process of integrating all aspects of your personality, both the conscious and the unconscious, the light and the dark, the acceptable and the rejected, into a cohesive, authentic, and truly self-realized being. It's the journey towards becoming the most complete version of yourself. And here's why individuation is so profoundly relevant to overcoming addiction. Addiction, in essence, is a profound state of disintegration. It's a fragmentation of the self. The addict is often at war with themselves, pulled in different directions by conflicting desires, values, and compulsions. The conscious mind might desperately want sobriety, but the unconscious pull of the addiction feels overwhelming. Parts of themselves are suppressed, ignored, or externalized onto the substance or behavior. They're often living a life that feels profoundly inauthentic, disconnected from their true desires and purpose. Jung would say that addiction is a detour, a painful and destructive one from the path of individuation. It's a tragic attempt to find wholeness in an external source, rather than cultivating it from within. The drug, the alcohol, the gambling, the endless scrolling, these become false centers, temporary stand-ins for the true regulating center of the psyche, which is the self. So, genuine recovery, from this perspective, isn't just about abstaining. It's about getting back on the path of individuation. It's about undertaking the profound work of psychological integration. What does that look like? Firstly, it involves shadow work, which we discussed. It's about having the courage to face those parts of yourself you've disowned, your anger, your fears, your insecurities, your hidden resentments, your unfulfilled potential. It's about acknowledging them, understanding them, and bringing them back into the fold of your conscious awareness, rather than letting them run rampant from the unconscious. This integration weakens the power of the addiction, because those repressed energies no longer need to express themselves through destructive compulsions. Secondly, it involves finding and integrating meaning, as we explored earlier. When you discover a purpose that resonates with your deepest values and talents, you create a new, authentic center for your life. This purpose becomes a guiding star, pulling you towards wholeness, rather than allowing the addiction to be your false north. Thirdly, individuation requires connecting with your inner wisdom, yourself. This can happen through various means: psychotherapy, dream analysis, meditation, active imagination, creative expression, or simply spending time in nature and reflecting. It's about learning to listen to that quiet inner voice that guides you towards what is genuinely right for you, rather than being swayed by external pressures or internal compulsions. It's cultivating an inner authority. The journey of individuation is tough. It demands honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to change. It's about stripping away the masks we wear, confronting our illusions, and ultimately embracing all of who we are, flaws and all. But the reward for those who embark on it is profound, a life of authenticity, meaning, and genuine freedom. It's a recovery that goes beyond mere sobriety. It's a journey to becoming truly, deeply, and beautifully yourself, free from the chains of any external dependency. Addiction becomes an invitation, albeit a painful one, to finally step onto this path of wholeness. Okay, so we've covered some deep, fascinating Jungian concepts. But how do you actually use this stuff? How do you take these profound insights about the shadow, the search for soul, archetypes, and individuation, and turn them into actionable steps when you're facing down the relentless pull of addiction? It's not about magic. It's about shifting your perspective and engaging in deliberate inner work. First off, stop fighting the addiction as just a bad habit. This is probably the biggest shift. Instead of seeing it as something alien that's invaded you, try to see it as a misguided messenger. Ask yourself, what is this addiction trying to tell me? What part of me is feeling unmet, unheard, or unexpressed? This isn't about excusing the behavior, but about understanding its root. Is it loneliness? A sense of powerlessness? A craving for excitement? A deep-seated anger? The moment you frame it as a message, you change your relationship with it. Secondly, begin your shadow exploration. This isn't a quick fix, it's ongoing work. Start by simply observing your reactions. When do you feel shame? What aspects of yourself do you judge most harshly? What traits do you absolutely detest in others? Often, what we despise most in others is a reflection of our own unacknowledged shadow. Journaling can be powerful here. Write down those unacceptable thoughts, those ugly impulses, those hidden fears. Don't judge them, just witness them. The goal isn't to become those things, but to integrate them, to understand their origin, so they no longer control you from the subconscious. You might find that your addiction is a clumsy attempt to express a repressed anger or a need for control. Thirdly, seek your meaning and purpose. This is the long game. What truly lights you up? What cause makes you feel alive? What kind of contribution do you genuinely want to make to the world? It doesn't have to be grand. It could be mastering a new skill, volunteering, creating art, nurturing a garden, or deepening your relationships. The pursuit of meaning is like cultivating fertile soil within you. The more you feed your soul with genuine purpose, the less room there is for the weeds of addiction to grow. If you're struggling to find it, think about what you were passionate about before the addiction took hold. Often, the answer lies in rediscovering an old, forgotten spark. Fourthly, pay attention to your dreams. Keep a dream journal by your bed. Even if you don't remember much, write down fragments, feelings, images. Over time, you'll start to notice patterns, recurring symbols, or even direct messages about your current struggles. If you have a recurring dream or a particularly vivid one, spend some time with it. What feelings did it evoke? Does any image resonate with something you're dealing with in your waking life? Dreams are like nightly dispatches from your deeper self, and they often offer guidance that your conscious mind misses. Finally, understand that this is a journey, not a destination. Individuation isn't something you achieve, and then you're done. It's an ongoing process of growth, self-discovery, and integration. Recovery from addiction, approached through a Jungian lens, is part of this larger journey. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, and maybe even relapses. But each of those moments can be seen not as a failure, but as another opportunity to learn, to delve deeper, to understand what new aspect of your psyche is seeking your attention. This approach fosters self-compassion, not self-condemnation, which is vital for long-term healing. It means learning to walk with your inner struggles, rather than being constantly at war with them. We've explored how Carl Jung saw addiction not as a simple moral failing, but as a profound spiritual and psychological yearning. It's often a misguided attempt to satisfy a deep hunger for meaning, wholeness, or connection to our true self. We looked at how the shadow, those unacknowledged parts of ourselves, can fuel addictive patterns, and how archetypal energies can become chained and distorted. Ultimately, Jung teaches us that true liberation comes from finding genuine meaning, facing our unconscious, and embarking on the journey of individuation, becoming the whole, authentic person we were always meant to be. What unacknowledged part of yourself do you think might be contributing to a pattern you want to change? Share your thoughts in the comments below, or simply reflect on it for yourself. If this resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into philosophy and psychology, and share this video with someone who might need to hear Jung's powerful message today.